Hello, everyone.
Hey, guys.
Welcome to Conform to Transform, the podcast.
Oh, what's up? Yeah, indeed.
So how's it going today?
So fun. For me, good. It's going really well. It's a beautiful, perfect day.
It is a beautiful day.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, we'll have an amazing morning, and then we'll get to, the nitty-gritty of getting ready to record, and it always feels like pressure. It feels like we're attacked, because first of all, we're both the oldest, right? We're both the oldest.
Well, you're older than me, but yeah.
Well, we're both the oldest children.
Yeah. Oh, that's where you're going.
And we're different personalities. So it can get a little tense. And I would be worried if it wasn't tense before we're getting ready to record, because that would mean that the enemy doesn't care.
Yes.
And so since it does get tense before we're getting ready to record, we're on the right track. So.
Yeah, indeed. Like we argued about Wendy's.
But just praying for us when we get ready to record, because sometimes. All right.
Yeah.
So what do you have for us today?
Yeah. So anyway, hello everybody. So I'm excited. I'm pumped up to get this going. You can ask her. I've been asking for days. I've been itching to do this. It's been 2 weeks. We didn't get to do it last week. If you follow us on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, you probably saw that we went and saw Brandon Lake last week. That's why we didn't do it last weekend.
Yeah.
Because we got home. And then quite honestly, I wrote out my content for the podcast stuff today. And I wasn't going to do it last Saturday because we were just tired. We're like, all right, maybe we'll do it tomorrow. Sunday was busy too. And then as it turns out, Pastor Andy actually ended up preaching out of the same exact, it wasn't the exact same sermon, but I even told him at lunch, I was like, man,
that happens a lot. Usually it's the other way around, though. Usually we record, and then he'll touch on something we said in our podcast in his sermon.
Yeah.
So it's always...
Yeah.
God's confirmation.
It is, but now that I've let it sit for a week, it just, it feels a heck of a lot better and such. And so, it just would have ended up kind of being a continuation of his sermon last week. And I was like, I'm not going to do that.
I'm always amazed at that too. Which I don't want to just breeze past that, what I just said, like it's nothing.
Yeah, I don't either.
Because once you start experiencing God and you're listening to his direction in your life, he sends you lots of confirmations.
All the time.
And it's really exciting when you get them, because you're like, and God sees you, and God knows what he's asked you to do.
Right.
And God's happy with what you're doing, listening to him.
Yeah, indeed. So that's good stuff. And this is our 11th episode now. I'm getting better at this as we go. You guys may see we have a new intro video that I've been playing with. I'm far from a professional at this yet, but I am getting better as we go on. I think once we get to our 100th or 150th episode, we'll look back and just be like, wow, we were really, really bad at this.
Right.
And, it just hopefully it goes up. And I'm learning, which is we do a lot of video production stuff for the church as well and things like that. And so, all of this is just, it's phenomenal experience and just playing around. And not to mention, I love putting these out. I love interacting with our folks. I love talking about God and about Jesus and about, how he has, helped me, especially over the last 533 days now.
Same.
So,
the woman in me is looking at what you guys are going to see. And I just need to make a quick disclaimer.
What?
We are in the middle of a renovation project, so our TV enclosure thing is not finished. I can see it on the camera, and so I just want to make that disclaimer.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry.
It's right there. I don't think anybody would have noticed that.
I know, but I just,
Yeah, it looks good. Your head's right there. The rest of it looks pretty amazing. Yeah.
Here, I can block it. No, wrong way.
It's super close, so anyway.
Now you can't see it.
Very funny. All right, so today on our 11th episode here, this is titled, as you already know, because you clicked, it's called Set Apart. And I will let you guys know, I updated the site just a little bit, but if you go to conformed to transformed, that's transformed.com, you'll see that they're pretty quick. One's got our latest episode, which this one will be up there later tonight. And it gives you the option to go listen to the podcast or to watch the podcast. What I saw was on the website, if you go on a mobile device, you don't see any way to get to our channels and stuff. And so we're all over the place. We're on TikTok, Instagram. YouTube is where it's at for us right now. We don't know where we're going to be pushing things more and more. But, as we put out short videos and then also these long form podcasts as well. So you can go listen to it. A lot safer when you're driving than watching it. I have watched these videos. You created it in this little holster. It's not super, it's not the safest thing on the planet,
No, we don't promote that.
Yeah, we do not. We do not
No.
promote that here at Conform to Transform.
No, we don't.
And so anyway, we're going to talk about being set apart. And what does that mean? You know, anybody that is a Christian knows, you know, you've heard that we're supposed to be set apart, right? And so I am going to base our conversation today around 1 Peter 2:9. And we're going to get into the Bible because you know that I like doing that. So we're definitely going to be touching on several different verses. I'm going to try to get some text up on the video overlay so you can see some of the verses that we're talking about whenever this actually gets put out. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and share 1 Peter 2:9. We'll let you know, too, anytime I share Bible verses here on this podcast, I am reading from the English Standard Version, ESV. And so 1 Peter 2:9 tells us, "But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light." So, Krista, I'll just ask you, and again, she honestly didn't even know that I was going to be talking on this. I know we say this every week. I even asked her earlier, do you want to know? And she's like, no, I want it to be a surprise.
No.
And so a lot of this is ad-libbed from her. What does set apart mean for you? If somebody says, what does set apart mean? Your answer is what?
As a Christian, set apart means to me that I have been chosen and called by God to something, to his will, and to answering to his will, and to winning others to him.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's very good. The first thing that I think about when I hear set apart is like, we're supposed to be different.
Mm-hmm.
We're supposed to be different. That's why, you know, a year ago I got offended when people would say that guy's a weirdo. Now
Right.
it's less and less.
Right.
I'm supposed to be a weirdo
So-
compared to the norm, right? So
Yeah, and like being set apart as a Christian, it means exactly that. And
yeah,
we are different. And I think that it is being called to be set apart. And he knows when that calling on you is going to happen. Like he knew.
we're gonna get into that, but he knew that before you were born.
Before we were born.
One of my first, or
Yep.
one of my favorite verses in all of the Bible. We'll jump into it. Ephesians 2:10. That's
Yeah.
further down the line, and we'll get into that, and I'll quote that. And also, to me, set apart, that means that, like, not full sanctification, but you're chosen for a special purpose. And God made me to do things that you can't do. He made you to do things that you can't do, and our pastor can do things that we can't do, and our friends.
Absolutely.
Like, we all have a special calling in our life that nobody before me could do, and nobody after me could do. And I was designed specifically
Right.
for that. And he has set us apart to do that.
That's why all of our journeys are different. So different.
Yep.
Everybody's testimony is so different.
Yeah. Everybody's story is
I mean,
different.
Think about that.
Yeah. So think
That's-
about just the three that I listed: Moses, David, and Paul, all being set apart for something specific. Like Moses, when he was called, he was like, I can't do this. You know, I have a stutter. I can barely
Right.
talk. I'm terrified of public speaking. You want me to get up in front of an entire group of people and tell them about this? He's like, I can't do it. And God's like, well, yes, you can. I am God. I
Right.
made you. Like that's an absolutely crazy statement when you think about the power and the sovereignty of God and all that, and telling him, I can't do this. When he asks you to do something, obviously you can.
Right.
Like you were made for
course.
that. And so David, same way. You know, David had his mistakes. And by the way, spoiler alert for everybody out there, is that every dude in the Bible, basically, that you see their stories, these guys were a disaster. They were a mess. And the main reason is so God can be given glory, which we'll get into as well. Took a lot of
Yeah.
notes on that.
Yep.
And so God's people, we're called to be distinct and holy because he is holy. Holy does not mean perfect, because there was only one that was ever perfect. But we are to strive towards that, and we are to be different. And in a crowd of 50 people, when you're talking to, like, somebody should be able to look at you and just be like, that person's different. Why?
Right.
Like, what is it? And it's not because you're acting like a crazy person or you're up there just spitting out Bible verses like crazy. There's just something about you that's different, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, go ahead.
And I will say that, like, being set apart and being chosen, nobody's too far gone to be set apart and be chosen.
Absolutely. No. You were set
As a
apart and
matter of
chosen
fact,
before you
it's
were
the
born.
opposite.
Yeah.
It's like the opposite, because the further you have fallen, the more, and when you come back, the more of a miracle of a story it is.
Yeah, Paul talks about that a
So
lot.
the further you've fallen, the stronger your testimony, the wider your reach that you could have, I think.
More impactful.
It's more impactful. Not that, not that if you didn't fall far, that means anything less. I just think that those who have fallen really far don't ever think that you've fallen too far.
Yeah, because that's one of the tools and tricks of the enemy, right? That doesn't mean go out and make the biggest disaster that you possibly can, so God can be given glory. The point is that whenever you do come around, yeah, I mean, I think that's fairly obvious, right? Yeah, and so what does it mean to be set apart? We kind of just dove into that. So I'm going to spout off here John 15:16, and basically here's what he said. He said, "You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, that your fruit should abide, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give it to you." He chose us and he appointed us so that we can go and bear fruit. We've been talking a lot about bearing fruit, in our sermons and things like that. A lot of these documentaries that we've been watching and all these other things, they're like 92% of the world is Christian. And I'm like, are they though? I don't agree with that. I mean, I believe that many people believe probably that Jesus was a person that lived, or whatever they make of him is different. We're kind of going through this with an alpha program that we're dealing with at church on Tuesdays. But the sold out ones, the ones that know that they're set apart and that are actually, if 90% of this world were true Christ followers, I don't think that it would be as much of an epic disaster as we're looking at right now.
Because I hear the opposite. I hear that churches are declining, but I don't believe that.
I don't believe that either.
When that Brandon Lake concert, it was sold out with 10,000 people.
Yeah, he said that was one of the bigger crowds he's seen.
So, and I mean, people pray, all kinds of people.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It was all kinds of generations, all genders, both genders, all kinds of people.
Yeah.
At this concert.
Yeah, it made me wonder if that's what heaven is like. You know what I mean? Just like doing that forever.
And having a blast praising.
Yeah.
And it's just something to see. And I think that we're going to see a revival soon. I think there's more people coming back to it, and there's going to be a revival in the church.
Well, there's so many questions, and so many people are lost and scared and don't know where to go. And us, we know the answer, right?
Yeah.
And that's our job, is to let people know the answer. This world's hurting, and that's not a cocky thing to say that we have the answer, but we kind of do. That's I don't know. I'm trying to say that.
That's what we're doing. We're doing.
Trying to say that in a non-braggadocious way, obviously, right? But I mean, anybody that asks me what's the difference, what changed, I'm glad to tell them exactly what changed, because I tried everything else. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
By the way, it just doesn't work, and so. God chooses us not based on merit, but by his grace. And so what does that mean? That means that if I go read 15 chapters in my Bible for the next 3 months, I'm not all of a sudden qualified enough for God to use me for something. You could be used where you are right here, right now. You just got to be set apart and just realize that you are different and you're supposed to be different. And don't treat different as in a bad thing. Take pride in it. Mm-hmm. Take pride in it, man. I love the fact that we're different. Mm-hmm. I love that. But I love weird stuff, and I love being weird. And so being set apart, is it weird? Yes, but absolutely, I think it's absolutely amazing. And we're called for a specific purpose in God's kingdom, kind of like we talked about. I feel like that I'm living out part of my purpose right now, just doing this. One, because I love talking and I love putting all of this to video. I love sharing our experiences and what we've been through. And if even one person changes their life, or their life is transformed through this, then it's all worth it. It's all 100% worth it. And even if nobody does, it's still worth it, because I'm getting to do something that I love. But I don't see that happening. I already see people being impacted. I see men's and women's lives being transformed. And so I feel like that we're on a good path with this. Mm-hmm. And I've just got to remember that I am supposed to be different from the world, right? And just like in Moses's case, we're chosen to have a relationship with him. We are set apart for that. Free will does come into play here, because First Peter, if you start reading into it and you really start doing deep dives on it, there's a lot of talk about predestination, and Peter gets into it. I spoke about that with Andy at lunch as well. It's you can go super duper deep with First Peter. I've been doing a habit to where whatever Andy is preaching out of, I'd study pretty hard for those few weeks during the series, so I have a better viewpoint and perspective. Not to mention he's mentoring me as I go along my path of becoming a pastor again. And so,
what did you just say? Because I don't think they know that.
yeah, indeed. And so, I got the ball rolling of becoming licensed / ordained in our denomination. And so, it's just going to open up more opportunities for our reach and for us to go to places and also just for God to use us wherever he wants to. And I'm excited about it because I'm taking all these crazy classes that would put most people to sleep that I actually love. And so, I love, like, very few people love doing deep dives on Leviticus, right? But I do. It's fun. And so, but it's multifaceted. And I know that God has called me to this just because I love talking. I love telling my story. And I'll say it to anybody that listens. I know a lot of people are going to be annoyed. They're going to think I'm crazy. But then again, my response to that is, who are you?
Right.
So, I answer to God. I don't answer to anybody else at all, period. I mean, you sometimes if I want my life to go smooth, but, well, it's so fun. It's true, right?
Sure.
Happy wife, happy life, etc. Anyway, I'm going to read this verse I was just talking about. As we're chosen for a relationship. I trailed off there. But in Exodus chapter 19, regarding Moses, God tells him, "Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all peoples, for all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the people of Israel." And that was during the, spoiler alert, actual Exodus. It's not just the name of the book. That's actually what was going on there. And, we're not only set apart for that, we're set apart for fellowship and intimacy with God. Right? The Bible's very clear that his heart is pleased whenever we praise him, whenever we worship him. And he didn't make robots at all. We have free will. We have the ability to choose to do this or not. And if we do choose this path, we realize very, very quickly that it is the path to happiness. And that was one of my biggest fears whenever I was starting recovery and just coming around to all that and just being like, Jesus is the way, like, I got to do this. What scared me is how boring I thought that it was going to be. And just like, people tend to think about all the stuff that they don't get to do. What they don't realize is this life is the best way, and it's because we were made in his image by a God who designed us a specific way, and we're not going to find happiness outside of that.
No.
Make sense?
It's kind of what the last podcast we were talking about, the chase, right?
Yeah.
Same idea.
Sure. Yeah, that's right.
People try to fill that void with all kinds of things, and they never fill it unless they fill it with Jesus. That's it.
Yeah, indeed. And it sounds cocky, and like some people, whenever you're talking to them, they're like, so the only way that I can be happy in this life is if I follow God. I'm just like, yeah, that's actually true. But you can't think of it as like a chore or a problem, because once you're actually living it and experiencing it and doing this for real, you realize it's the best life that you could possibly have. Like, if you stop and think and just meditate about what your dream life looks like, God has plans for you that blow those out of the water. That just blow them out of the water. It makes the life that you envisioned pretty boring, right? And so we just need to remember that, which brings us to our second point here is why. Why be set apart? And one of those reasons, I think one of the whole basis of us being here, by the way, is to bring God glory, to show his glory, to show his ways. And so I think that we're set apart to reflect his character.
Yeah.
Because we're made in his image, right? And we're supposed to model after Jesus Christ, right? And when we do that, we give him glory and we reveal his character by the way that we walk and by the way that we talk and how we move and breathe. And by the way that we live and move and have our being in him. That's the way that we're supposed to be.
So one of those ways, when I think of Jesus Christ, I think of someone who loves unconditionally and helps people unconditionally and is just selfless.
Right. Yeah.
And can you imagine a world where everybody was loving their neighbor, loving like Jesus, and selfless? Every problem that you can think of that is going on in this world, don't you think that would be eliminated?
It would be gone. Yeah.
That's why the enemy is trying so hard to divide everyone right now.
Yeah, especially families.
I mean, really, really sit back and think about that, because some of the division and the emotion involved is not natural, and we know it. And if you take a minute to think about it, you'll know it too. So when you think about that and how much emotion people have and how unnatural that is, how can you deny that there's spiritual warfare going on?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's undeniable. And the more people who want to live like Jesus, the more people who want to love each other like Jesus, the more defeated the enemy becomes in the spiritual warfare, which is why they are trying so hard to keep us divided. And I'm not trying to say which side's doing that. It's both sides.
Yeah,
it's all of it.
both. Yeah.
It's and
blue
it's
don't
not just
matter.
it's not just our country. It's worldwide if you really pay attention. And the answer you've got to ask yourself is why. And we're trying to tell you why. And I promise you that you will be happy. And no matter what the outcome is, no matter what our future holds as things are getting bumpy, I'm not going to skate around the fact that it's getting bumpy. No matter what, you will find peace and you will find clear direction if you seek God.
Yeah, well said. All right. I'd say drop the mic, but it's on a stand. Yeah, you can't. Anyway. Yeah, that's such a good point. And one of my life goals, I have like 5 of them. One of them is to be a selfless father and husband.
Yeah.
And selfless, it sounds easier, right? Just like selfless, okay. But the whole core and the whole basis of it is to, whatever is important to you is more important than what is important to me. Does that make sense? It's like putting other people before your very own needs. That's what being selfless is. And there's selfishness everywhere. It is so thick. It's a complete opposite of the character of Jesus. Gonna be selfless. So something that makes you happy and makes your day.
I know you know that I'm starting this is really crazy. So you came home and you wanted to watch the movie what movie did we watch? What was it called? War Room.
Yeah.
War Room.
Yeah.
And
it's great.
Oh, I had never heard of it. I had never seen it. Like, this is how God works. And I watched it. This was just 3 weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that lady, like the wife, she prayed for her marriage and over her husband the same way I did the last
exact
night
same way.
Drank.
Yeah,
and it was the same exact way. And I didn't even know what I was doing. I bent, you bend.
Yeah.
And I bent. And I praised God in it. I told the enemy off in it, like commanded the enemy to leave us alone and all those things. And that's just like what she did in that movie.
Yeah.
So then that brought me, then the next day, Pastor Andy preached on, I don't even remember exactly what he preached on, but what I got out of it was that for the next few days, praying and talking to God, that I am going to be a prayer warrior, but mostly a prayer warrior for wives and marriages. So then I started my devotion, and my devotion is about is about changing your prayer from I'm going to pray on working on myself, so that if I pray on working on myself in my response to the things that my husband does that drives me crazy or whatever, that will make our marriage better. And so that's crazy that you said that you were praying.
You start praying different, because what the natural thing is for me to go to my knees and just be like, "Dear God, please help me. My wife is driving me crazy. If you could fix these 7 things in her, my life's going to be a lot better." That's not what you pray for, know. Yeah, you pray for more of Jesus in their lives. Be like, hey, reveal yourself to them, because when their character changes, it affects absolutely everything.
I'm praying that you will remind me of the good things these things that I don't like about this person seem less.
Yeah.
Like, those are the kinds of ways that you switch your prayers. And those are the kinds of ways that if we live our lives on a day-to-day basis of, instead of, hurt people. I just had this conversation with Sadie this week because she was having trouble. But And I reminded her, I go, you know what, Sadie? When someone does that, someone like lashes out at you abnormally,
Yeah.
because it's not something you would do, right? And she said, no. And I said, when somebody does that, you need to be praying for them and feel sorry for them because they're hurting. Something is causing them to do something and say something so hurtful to someone else because that's not human nature.
No.
That comes from a place of torment. And if we all start realizing that, and with Jesus we can, then this world would be such a better place.
Yeah,
We would start helping each other that are trying to hurt us. What's going on in the why? Because it's not human nature. Because God is in us, and His nature is to love everybody.
Yeah. So selflessness. Anyway. So holiness and distinctiveness being set apart, like that should show up in our everyday actions and our lifestyle as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we not only should people know that but like we should act different. We should act different, be different with our attitude, with the way that we treat people, and going back to the selflessness. Yes, that is absolutely correct. Mm-hmm. And so, and we'll get into this. This is on my list here. The importance of living out God's principles. And whenever you have Jesus in your life, that's what you want to do. But to the righteousness, integrity, and the love, like you were talking about. And kind of jumping back on to what you were talking about. Yes, you mentioned hurt people, but we've talked about this in our men's group too, is that like, if you're talking to somebody and they just blow up on you, it's typically not at you. It's something that they're going through. And so I love the book, Psycho-Cybernetics. I've read it several times. But one of the points of it is that, and the Bible mentions it too, that if you hurt somebody else, you're actually hurting yourself. Mm-hmm. So what you do to other people, you're actually doing to yourself. And so if you're having a really bad day and somebody says, hey, what color is the sky? And you just freak out on them, that's because you got something going on within you. Like, you're not mad at that person, you're mad at you for something.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah. And so another reason of why being set apart is it goes back to our main verse for today, which is, but you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for His own possession, that you can proclaim the excellencies of Him who called you out of darkness into His marvelous light. Long story short, God gets the glory. Again, just like we talked about. And so we're set apart to declare His praises and to share His love with the world. Like, that is why we are here, is to show other people that. That's why the church started off with just 12 misfits, 12 crazy dudes that told some friends, that told some friends, that told some friends. You know, you couldn't just go send a copy of the Bible to your printer and it go off. This is people talking to people, talking to people, talking to people. And it went from 12 people to, you know, the biggest religion on the planet, probably. I mean, I don't know the exact numbers. You know, I know Islam's up there too, but just the way that it blew up in that fashion, right? So. And we got to witness both through our words and our actions. It's very, very easy to say all of these things and preach all of these things and talk about all these things. And then once the camera goes dark here, once this video is posted, like, what are we doing? How are we living? Like, are we living what we just talked about? Or are we just doing lip service? Because there's a lot of people that can talk about it all day long. You know, some of the craziest people I know are the people that know the Bible better than anybody else. Head knowledge of the Bible gets you nothing at all. It's actual real life application. Yeah, for sure. And so just be thinking about that. How can you glorify God every single day through your daily life? And it can be very, very little things, taking care of yourself. You know, and we'll get into that here in just a little bit too, because our bodies are a living sacrifice. Like, we are the temple of God. Like, God lives within us. We should take care of our bodies as such. And so, what are the costs? The cost and the blessings of being set apart. Do you think that there's a cost associated with it? There is. Of
course.
Yeah, most definitely.
Of course. Yes. The enemy wants to attack you because you're against him, right? You're trying to, everything that he stands for, you're trying to take away by bringing people to God.
Yeah.
So the enemy attacks, of course.
Yeah.
But the difference is, you know how to fight him. You know that you're gonna come, that God's got your back.
Yeah.
That's it. God's got your back.
Well said. Yeah, well said. Yeah, so one of the costs pretty much it's sacrifice and surrender. But once you do it, you realize it's not really a sacrifice. And so Romans 12:1, not to be confused with our theme verse, Romans 12:2 of this ministry, but Romans 12:1, right before that, says this: I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship.
Yeah.
So what that means, your spiritual worship, is whenever you offer yourself as a living sacrifice. It's like, today, I am not mine, I am yours.
Yeah.
And through that, if I'm serious about it, I'm actually doing it, me living through you and in you, you bless me immensely, thus blessing others. And it's just a ray of love. Not to sound like a hippie or anything, but like, it just exudes from you. People can tell that there's something different. That's because you are set apart, right? And so being set apart, it requires that total surrender, that total obedience to God's will.
Yeah.
And God's will is another huge topic that we can probably get into another time. But God's will, I still do these hourly reminders on my watch and all that other stuff. And the main thing that I do is I ask for wisdom, and just to make sure, like, over this next hour, like, am I doing what you want me to do? Am I living how you want me to live? Am I following you? Do I fail? Yeah, all the time. I mean, I'm a human. I'm going to fail. But the point is that I'm building out those muscles, those spiritual muscles. And once you do that and you bury yourself in the Word, you start realizing, you start seeing everything through His lens, not yours. And His lens is, His lens is better, obviously. And so what are the areas of your life? And if you're listening to this and you're taking it seriously, there may be some things floating around in your brain, like, what area of my life do I need to fully surrender to God's calling? Because I promise you this, if you're a child of God, He is calling you to something. You have been called to something. It's a matter of, how do you see it? How do you realize it? And how do you start putting that into everyday real life? And another cost, you're going to face opposition. You're going to get made fun of. You're going to be called names. You're going to be judged. You're going to be all of those things. And my response to that is, good, bring it on. Because we're supposed to be. John 15:19, says, if you were of the world would love you as its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you. And so whenever you get made fun of, if you get ridiculed, like, don't be surprised. You can expect that to happen, right? And so being different, you can ask any kid that's in school these days, being different, like, what happens? That's rejection, that's persecution, that's being made fun of. But you're being made fun of or persecuted, for the right reasons. But just like you said, God sustains us.
Right.
God's got our back through this entire thing. And so, easier said than done, I know, but you just got to trust in God's provision and in God's strength, even when the world oppresses. And if you feel yourself being made fun of, or somebody being like, oh my gosh, what is that guy doing? Or what's Krista doing? Like, be glad about that. Thank God for that. Just be like, hey, the world hates me. Totally understand. I know that you don't.
Yeah.
His opinion is the only one that matters.
I agree.
His opinion is game over. And
I don't struggle with that as much as you do.
I know.
So,
Yeah, it's very true.
I get it, though.
Yeah.
I do understand.
Yeah. Well, we all struggle with it a little bit, but yeah, I've always had problems with it as well. By nature, I'm a people pleaser.
Yeah.
And a lot better than it used to be. But yeah, being a yes man can get you in a lot of trouble. Works for a while, but you get burned out a little bit.
Yeah.
And stuff, and so you just got to be careful. And I've been super duper intentional over the last few months, and I'm probably driving you crazy with it because I talk about it all the time. But just like, my schedule's gotten a lot tighter. Like, I don't waste as much time. Like, if I have time and I'm doing something, it's typically not a waster. Typically, I want to do something constructive. Because to me, and to former addicts as well, boredom is a problem.
Yeah.
That's the devil's playground.
And he's married to a sloth. I'm not even kidding.
We are polar opposites whenever it comes to that, man. Yeah, I'm go, and she's stop. So,
I could sit on the couch under my blanket and just
that's right.
Watch the world go by.
So jumping onto this, the cool thing is when you're set apart and you realize that, and you realize that God is your only one and true judge, His opinion is the only one that matters, you start experiencing God's favor, which is priceless. And in Psalm 4:3 it says, but know that the Lord has set apart the godly for Himself. The Lord hears when I call to Him. And that is just amazing. That stood out to me as well whenever I was reading. For some reason, I just flipped to Psalm 18 several weeks back, and there was a verse about my prayers reach your ears. And that's just so powerful. That's just crazy, because whenever you read it, if you really break it down and think, the God of the universe that created absolutely everything with his breath and that is in control of everything and that is in everything and through everything, he hears you when you speak. That is just insane. And, I can think of like millions of people that'll be super duper excited if like Brandon Lake knew what I was thinking, or some other, teenagers, if Taylor Swift just knew me, if like all of these things. Dude, the God of the universe knows you and loves you more than you can imagine. And that's mind blowing to me. It's like, forget celebrities, forget the Dallas Cowboys, forget all of these other things. Like, it's not even close. And so whenever I speak, when I say, God, please help me have a good day today, those words reach that guy's ears.
Yeah.
Isn't that fascinating?
It is.
Yeah.
That's why praising him in the valleys and praising him when you're on your highs is just as important.
Yeah.
When you praise him in the valley, it's just as important as when you praise him when you're on the highs, because think about it.
Yeah.
If somebody is totally in pain, yet they're taking the time to think about me.
Yeah. That's called selflessness, right?
Selflessness.
Yeah. Indeed.
And that's what you're doing to God when you're in the valley and you're still praising him. I'm not saying praying to him. That's different. You're probably going to do that too.
Yeah.
God, please help me out of this situation. But taking the time to praise him.
Yeah. It's amazing.
When it's hard.
Yeah.
That's selfless.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of spirit he wants.
Yeah. And
he will bless you for it.
Yeah, 100%. And I've been thinking about it more and more whenever I do pray. I'm like, I am just in awe that you can even hear this.
Right.
Because it's not just a chant. It's not me spitting it out in the universe and just maybe hoping that he pulls out of a pot and he's like, yeah, I'm feeling like, helping Brian out today. He hears me every single time that I say anything or do anything. I don't know why. That seems simple, but it blows my mind.
It does.
It just does. And it's been blowing my mind more and more and more.
And you get confirmation that he hears you. That's it. We're not just like saying,
right,
God hears me, I just know it.
We're not just crazy people.
Get confirmations,
right.
And that's the crazy part.
Yeah.
Like the confirmations for me, it's getting easier, but I used to want this flashing sign and
right. Yeah, and you just touched on it. You didn't even know this is in my notes, but God blesses those who live for him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you seek him, you will find him. If you love me, keep my commandments, et cetera, et cetera. And so he blesses those who live for him, and it sets us even further apart for his purposes. Mm-hmm. So now, all these other things that I used to strive for and all of that, all that I want to do now is just please him. And the amazing thing is, if this entire world crumbles down around me, if I lose absolutely everything, I can't and will never lose him. Mm-hmm. And if I have him, that's all I need. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have 47 cars or 5,000 square feet or whatever the heck that it may be, is that if you have God, you have everything. And more than everything. Our brains can't even fathom it, honestly.
And the enemy is very, very good at convincing you otherwise.
Oh, dude, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, that's all I can say to that is, dude, you are right.
Yep.
Exactly. And you can also live out the assurance of God's presence and protection. That's another thing that is just so, it's that peace that passes all understanding, right? It's like, no matter what's going on, I know that I'm following his word and that I'm trying to live out this purpose that he has called for me. And if you do that, you can't lose.
No.
You just can't lose. And so yeah, let's just go ahead and move along here. So the very last thing, let's talk about living out our calling. Let's practical steps. So this is more of like, we've been spitting out head knowledge, right? We've been spitting out Bible knowledge. Okay, that's great. How do you put this into practice in your every single day life, right? You got to cultivate a relationship with God. Mm-hmm. And you do that by the daily prayer, which we do all of the time. It used to be a very rare thing. Something else I want to do a podcast episode on is I was reading a devotion on this the other day. It could be a full sermon, and it just jumped out at me. Who is God to you when everything's going right? When everything is smooth, everything's going really, really good in your life, who is God to you at that point?
The same person he is when everything's not
That's
right.
the way it's supposed to be. But yeah, what you see, especially in our society and especially in American Christianity and Western culture, is that you sure do a lot of praying when everything are going bad. You're like, oh, God, please, like all of a sudden your prayer life steps up whenever something goes bad or the internet goes out or when you're a little short on money that month or whatever. All of a sudden we become super Christians at that point, right?
Right.
But whenever you live out the relationship with him, spending time in his word, spending time in daily prayer, it becomes more of a way of life. And it's not such a roller coaster. It's like, hey, when things are going good, God is God. When things are going bad, God is God. He's the same now, yesterday, today, and forever. He's never changed, and he never will. Our human brains have a hard time comprehending that and understanding that. It's very hard for us to fathom. And so we got to guard against distractions and worldly influences too, because those are everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
So many shiny things. Again, especially, I know I talked about American culture and all that other stuff, especially where we live, like in our area. You compare it to the rest of the world, we're the world's richest people. I mean, it's just crazy around here. We're spoiled. We're like, we truly don't know what really, really hard times are. We think we do. Like when the smallest thing goes bad, we just act like it's the end of the world. We just freak out. But yeah, you just got to be careful with those
Problems are problems no matter what.
Yeah,
So no matter where you are in the world, you feel like it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how big or small your problem is. God is the answer. So whether you live in Hamilton County or Tijuana, God, your problem, when it means as much to you, is what that's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
It matters how much you feel like it's a problem, and God is God no matter how big or small the problem is. So
very, very true. Very good, Krista. So another thing we can do, real life, commit to holiness. Commit to holiness, right? So 2 Corinthians 7:1 tells us, since we have these promises, let us cleanse ourselves from every defilement of body and spirit, bringing holiness to completion in the fear of God. In other words, that's just being intentional and just knowing that this body that I walk around in, this head that I have, these arms that I have, like these belong to God. He gave them to me. And if you really come down to it, like me wiggling my fingers or raising my hand, like that is the power of God. I feel like that allows us to actually even be able to do that. And so once you realize that you are completely in Him and He is also in you, it's a huge game changer, and you commit yourself to holiness. And so we got to purify our lives from anything that dishonors God. And what dishonors God? Well, you'll get to know that more and more as you spend time in the Word, because when it tells you, and two, you get this head knowledge, you get these feelings, you get these nudges, like, should you really be doing this?
It comes down to He gives you discernment.
Yeah.
He gives you discernment while you're reading through your Word. He gives you discernment with what you hear from the message. We could both listen to the same message or read the same Bible verse, and He speaks to me differently than He'll speak to Brian.
That happens all the time.
Yeah. And that's discernment. And He does the same thing with convicting you of things that you need to get out of your life. Because what I might need to get out of my life is not the same as what Brian needs to get out of his life. The thing that's keeping me from doing and being holy and doing God's work may not be the same thing that's keeping Brian from being holy and doing God's work. Because at the end of the day, that's all He wants, is for you to praise Him, do His work, bring other people to Him.
Right.
And so I don't think it's a one size fits all type of thing. I believe that our convictions come from the Holy Spirit. They come from God. And that's why I try really hard not to focus on the rules and the laws, because that's God's job. Our job is to bring them to Him.
Yeah.
That's our job, to help bring, with Him through us. We're His vessel. But I think He calls on us to bring people to the water, right? And then He'll carry out the rest.
Yeah. That's so true. And how do you do that? You be set apart and you live differently. That's all that we can do, because we get it into our heads that like we're going to go out there and save all these people. God does the saving.
No, God does the saving.
What we can do is do what we know is right, do what we know that He's called us to do, and to be set apart. And when you are set apart,
we can share the map.
Yeah. Our job is to be set apart. And when we're set apart, that means we're going to be living in a way that glorifies Him. When we glorify Him, it leads people to Him. It's not as complicated as it sounds. No. It's just a matter of just doing those things and doing them right. And, I've talked to Andy about this too, and this is a topic that I just love talking about. We have one job as Christians, and that is be obedient.
Yeah.
Be obedient. And so what does that mean?
Now, I do think that we do still have the job of speaking truth and what is right. So don't get me wrong when I say that God does the convicting. I think that we do have the job of speaking the truth. but not judging. That's the thing. See, that's where everybody gets messed up.
Yeah. Well, you're right. And I'll tell you, like, all these things that I'm talking about, I don't have figured out. I screw every single one of these things up. So, like, whenever I'm doing this, hey, I'm just as convicted as anybody else out there that maybe listen to this and being like, hey, should I be more set apart? I should be more set apart.
Yeah.
And so it's not
if I stop feeling convicted about things, then I will be a little bit worried.
So it's not a judgy thing at all, because I'm just, I'm as bad at this as anybody
we're seeking holiness, right?
Yeah.
And we're never going to be as holy as God. So we should always be feeling convicted of something.
Yeah. Well, you're going to be. Yeah, indeed. And so, you know, Jesus was so close to God whenever he was here on this earth, you know, and that's why he's the number one ultimate role model. You know, it's like you can ask somebody, and I've done this before, is like, if you could be any character in the Bible that you should act like, that you should emulate, who is it? And people are like, Moses, David, Peter, all of that. Jesus is the one. You know, you want to try to be like him. Yes, these other stories are cool, and we see good examples of how we should live through those people, but the focus isn't on them. Their stories are to show us how God can use those people, because, you know, they come out victorious in the end every single time, right? And so, I mean, we have to do regular self-examination and accountability as well. So in other words, that's you've got to assess. You got to know where you're at. One of the things that I like to do, and I need to be better about it, but I've gotten pretty good at it, is like a daily review of my day. It's like I have these 4 or 5 things that I ask myself. I look back and what went well today? What went bad today? Well, why did it go bad? And that's how you improve. That's how you make things better. You figure out what doesn't work, and then you apply the things that you know does work to be better tomorrow than you were yesterday. And so you have to examine yourself regularly. Like, how am I doing?
Right.
Where am I going? Like, is this a dead end? Am I doing the right things? Am I seeking his face in all of these things? Instead of just going all willy-nilly, going to church for an hour and a half on Sundays, and then just coming out and you're like, oh, okay, cool, I'm good for the week. Got my dose of Jesus this week. And then completely in shock and awe when Tuesday morning everything's falling apart.
Right.
Yeah, so, you know, you need to examine yourself all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. I'm not saying that that's daily. You know, I do that for work stuff and like goals that I have and all of that, but maybe it should be daily. It's different for everybody, but you do have to assess and be like, where am I at? Going back to selflessness, we got to serve God and we got to serve other people faithfully. And which brings me to one of my favorite verses in all of the Bible, which is Ephesians 2:10. And what that says is, for we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. So what is that saying? That before we were even born, he knew what our purpose was, what we were going to do if we followed the proper ways.
God is writing your story. Quit trying to steal the pen.
Yeah, boom. Yeah, she's trying to trademark that. I know it's on a t-shirt. Are you sure? Come on. Could be yours. No, but seriously, like, that blows me away. But whenever you actually do a deep dive on that verse and you look at it, because, you know, people all the time are like, gosh, am I screwing this up? Am I doing this right? God already knows what he made you for. And so you're not going to surprise him with any of this stuff. And just knowing that he knows the number of hairs on your head, he knows absolutely everything about you. You are perfectly and wonderfully made. Each one of us can do things that the other person can't. And so I know I keep hammering that, but I just wish more people grasp that, you know.
Right.
And another practical way, we need to use our unique gifts and our talents for God's kingdom work. There's nothing more sad than wasted talent.
Right.
Than somebody that'd be like, man, they'd be really, really good at that, and they just never do it because they're lazy or they're whatever.
I
That's
watched
sad.
this TikTok the other day of this guy, and he's like, okay, I'm talking, you know how cheesy some of them get, but I'm talking to anyone born before the 80s, like born in the 80s, 70s, 60s, 50s. If you're not from those generations, keep scrolling, you know what they do. And his question was, how are you feeling right now? Like, on the day-to-day basis, how are you feeling? And so many comments were like, worn out, exhausted, defeated, sick, bored, sick of the day-to-day. Like, every day is the same. I dread every morning. Because it can get mundane. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
And it was feeling that way for me before Christ, BC. But then after Christ, it's not like that, because your perspective's different every day.
Right.
Like, I'm going to work. Yes, I'm going to work the same job and same building with the same people every day. But on my way to work, I'm seeing beauty. While I'm at work, I'm seeing God moving. I have opportunities to see God moving no matter where I'm at.
Yeah.
And then it's not as mundane.
Right. And also,
and it's not as boring, and it's not as defeating. And
that tells me two things, Krista, is that one, you're starting to see the world through his lens and not yours.
Yep.
And you're asking for, hey, just let me see something amazing today through you, which then makes every day different. Yeah. And also, you mentioned those comments. The people are hungry.
That's what I'm
saying. People are seeking so badly. They're just desperate.
They are. And
right. And it's right there.
It's right here. This is your blueprint, guys.
Yeah. And what's not going to do that is standing on a street corner with a repent, the end is near sign.
No.
It's you living your life every single day, set apart and sanctified, and trying to be holy because he is holy. And when you do that, people look at you, they may make fun of you and be like, that dude is a wacko, but there is something different.
Otherwise,
about
yes,
him.
The enemy has created a very easy world for you to feel defeated, for you to feel defenseless, for you to feel fear, for you to feel anxiety. He has set up the perfect template for that.
Yeah.
So if you're not seeking God, then yes, that's what you're going to be feeling, because the things are hard.
Don't be surprised.
And it's funny because that's what I said when I shared the invite. Our church posts an invite every week, and I shared it to my personal social media. And I said, come escape the loud and find some peace and quiet, and come visit one. And by quiet, of course, I don't mean like there's silence at church. I mean a break from the loud.
Yeah.
Because right now things are really loud.
Very.
And I don't know how people will find peace besides through God at this point.
Right. Yeah. I'm right there.
And it's only going to get worse. Like in a couple weeks here in America, how many days away are we? Not very many.
Less than.
I know that
2 weeks and a few days, 17 days, maybe something like that.
Things are going to get louder. No matter what happens, it's going to get louder.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine not having God through what that's going to look like. Either way, no matter what the outcome. Right. And that's how you're going to get peace from the loud.
Yeah.
Is God. Church on Sundays. Try it. Start with going to church on Sunday. Start with going to a church on Sunday and see how you feel before you go in, because I know how everyone's feeling right now. Especially those without God. I get it, because it's loud. See how you feel during that service and when you come out before you have to go face the loud again. And I guarantee you got a piece of peace that you haven't felt in a while.
Yeah.
If you don't feel a piece of peace that you haven't felt in a while, then come talk to me and tell me I was wrong. But you're not going to.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, just kind of wrapping up this topic here, and then we can chat about whatever. So just to recap all of this, we are set apart to reflect God's character, to proclaim his greatness, and to fulfill his divine purposes within us that we can't do in any other way. And so people all the time are like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. I don't know. I got no direction. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I just want to get through today. And I meet people all the time. It's like, hey, how you doing? They're like, I'm so exhausted. I'm defeated. I was like, dude, it's 10 a.m. on Tuesday. Like, we got a ways to go here. I'm sorry that you feel that way all of the time. And I feel bad for those people. I've always been like an uppy, happy-go-lucky kind of dude, but I was still lost without it. But now with this purpose that I have, and with the goals that I have and the habits that I've set up and just all of these things, dude, life is awesome. It just is, because I know that today God is going to show me something that he didn't show me yesterday, and he's not going to show me tomorrow. And I just need to have the eyeballs to see it and to feel it and to truly be set apart, to be different.
Yes.
And, I'm taking pride in that now, instead of being like all embarrassed and cowering down. I'm just like, hey, I am different. Right. You want to know why? All you got to do is ask. And if you know me, I'll be glad to tell you.
I'll give you a personal example from this week. This week I've been struggling with, I am very passionate about my job, and I am very passionate about public education. I'm very passionate about children. And the world is starting to make me feel like, as a Christian, I have to take the side of either being against public education or being for public education. And I really have struggled with that this week because it was really starting to upset me. That I feel like I have to defend being an educator when I'm around Christians, or defend being a Christian around not all educators, but sometimes I just feel it. And, but at the end of but God said, Krista, you got into this for kids, and you are still in it for kids and for what's best for kids.
Yeah.
And I see firsthand that's another attack that is being created to divide us. And it's also an attack that is being created to hurt our kids. And I have to stand and fight. I have to stand and fight for it, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of kids in public education, guys. And I have to stand and fight and say, no, most of the teachers, the majority of the people that I work with, it hasn't changed. Like we were admired 10 years ago, and so it hasn't changed at all. Those people are still in it for the kids. We are in it for the kids. And what the world has been led to see different. I'm sorry I got on a soapbox there, because my point is just that the enemy is going to try to attack you no matter how he can. But it didn't affect me as much as it would have.
Right.
Because that's between me and God.
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
that's a different lens.
It's a different lens. God's like, no, Krista, I know your heart, and I know your intentions. So don't feel like you have to apologize to anybody.
Yeah.
And so I don't.
No, if you're following His word and His purpose for your life, you don't have to apologize to anybody.
Yes, that's it. Like, and I can. So I don't know, but anyways, that was just my example.
No, it's good.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, so you just answered the question I was going to ask. Mm-hmm. What is God calling you to do today in response to being set apart?
Oh, that.
Yeah. Embrace it. Soak it in.
Yeah. I'm going to continue to advocate for public schools and the betterness of our kids. That's not going to, that you can't take that away from me.
Yep.
I don't care what you say. I know what's going on in our schools, and the things that are being said that is going on is not happening in a majority of schools. I don't care. You can't convince me otherwise. Maybe a handful, but there's always bad seeds. There's bad churches. There's always a handful of bad
bad
things.
everything.
Bad everything. So I'm not going to back off of that, because there's a bunch of kids who don't have a choice but to go to public education that need people like me, that need Christians.
Yeah, it's like on anything.
So stop.
There's good ones, bad ones, etc.
And the other thing I've been called to do, like I said, is this is crazy, guys. This is only God, because it's only God. But I feel like He's calling me to be a prayer warrior.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So,
I think you would be amazing at that, actually.
That's going to be my...
Yeah, you have something built into you. You're an empath. Yeah. Like, other people's problems affect you.
Yes.
And so I think that is a core value that you need for being a prayer warrior, is to like go to God with other people's problems because they legitimately bother you.
Yeah.
And some people, it's not that they're a mean person. It's just like, if you're having a bad day, it has nothing to do with me, and like it just doesn't bother me, right? If the people around you that you love are having a bad time, like that affects you.
And I'm going to pray in my quiet place too, of course. But I feel like He's called me a prayer warrior everywhere. So, which is unusual for me, because I don't like to be the center of attention. That's why I teach children. Children's attention is fine, but I don't like to be the center of attention with adults. But I am going to pray out loud, and I'm going to pray with people, and I'm going to pray over people with them, and
that's awesome.
Not only in my quiet place. Yeah. And I'm going to need God to do that. And God's.
See, and that's a beautiful thing there. Sorry about my phone there. Mm-hmm. But Krista, that's something I was going to tell you, is like every single week we do these, I feel like both of us are being like, I feel like God's calling me to do this. I feel like God's calling me to do that, etc. That never happened before. No. It's whenever you're spending time in His Word and you're trying to do the right thing and all of that. He reveals to you every single day things you're supposed to be doing. And so we went from just kind of living life every single day, hoping you make it to the next day, to where like you're seeking out purpose every single day. Your ears are more open and attuned to Him. You're seeing things through His lens instead of yours. And so these things pop up and you're like, I want to do that. And you're being nudged by Him to do that. Mm-hmm. And that's where obedience comes in. And the more that you do that, the more peace that He gives you. Do you see the cycle? Mm-hmm. See how that works? And so Yeah, no, that's a beautiful thing. You used to never say these kind of things, and now, like, every other week, I feel like you're telling me, hey, maybe I should do this. Like, they're all God things, every single one of them, because you're focused on doing God things.
Yeah.
You know,
And
what you focus on, you get, you just do.
I
Huge
did.
believer in
I
that,
prayed
so.
for a long time for how God wanted me to use my testimony. 'Cause I have been through the ringer, and I know that not just with Brian, but I've been through the ringer with the majority of my life with things. Um, so I've been asking God, you go through the valleys for a purpose,
Right.
and so
Like, how can you
please show
use
me
my
how to
story?
use my valleys because they've been big. And coming a single mom with how young they were, I still look back. I cannot believe Sadie was 4, but that's something, and all those things. And God said, "I gave you a miracle when you fell down to your knees and you prayed and you finally surrendered." And I surrendered everything, and I praised Him during that moment too, by the way.
Yeah.
And so that's how I'm going to use my story. Prayer works.
That's amazing.
Prayer works.
Yeah. And so what I would like to invite all of you to do is just, at some point, if you listen to this or you made it this far in the video, just take a step back, take 3 minutes, set a 3-minute timer, and just close your eyes and just ask God, how can I be set apart? Show me how I can be used by you. Show me how I can glorify you, and watch Him do just 3 minutes.
Yeah.
That's it. That's not a Netflix episode. That's not 50 songs. That's not a 2-hour drive. That's 3 minutes. That's it. And just sincerely go to Him and ask Him, what do you want to show me today? And you will not be disappointed.
Yeah.
You will not be disappointed.
Yeah.
And so that was my little soapbox about being set apart. For some reason, that just jumped out at me. I'll be driving along. I got this little journal that I have. I have 100 ideas like that pop into my head all the time. Like, oh, that would be a great episode or something like that.
I get them sometimes too.
Yeah, and set apart just, a couple of these
last one
ideas.
was mine.
It was, yeah, indeed. Yeah, and I usually got a long laundry list in preparation for learning here. And plus, I just love doing it. I've been, like, writing sermons and outlines, and I just love doing this stuff. I'm building up a pretty good library of just stuff that I want to talk about.
Yep.
And so anyway, I just want to thank you guys for tuning in. This is a little bit longer one than usual, but we thank you for just hanging out with us and for being with us, and just kind of just for being loyal fans of us. We really appreciate that. But more than loyal fans of us, we want you to be loyal fans of Jesus and watch Him change your life, no matter what you've been through, no matter what has happened, no matter the challenge. I promise you that He will bring you out of it, and He will turn your story into glory. And that is exactly what we want to do with this. That's the reason that we do this.
As long as we're breathing, we've got a reason to praise.
That's right, man. Yeah, absolutely. Very, very good. Yep, I got that. Very, very good. That's good. If you know, you know.
Yep.
So anyway, really appreciate you guys. Thank you for absolutely everything. And we continuously pray for all of you, and I ask that you do that for us as well as we're going down this path together. And just want to thank you guys just for hanging out with us. Thank you.